What a great day to be you. You are going to learn about what is the discriminant. All right, so let's just get right into it. So the discriminant actually comes from our old pal, the quadratic formula, which I have here. So the discriminant is just this part under the square root of the quadratic formula. So it's actually something that you don't really have to remember. If you know the quadratic formula, then you know the discriminant. So it's just the part under the square root. So it's b squared minus 4ac. And the purpose of it is that it tells us what types of solutions to expect from a quadratic. Now, I think a lot of times when people learn about this, they feel like it's like this totally different, very difficult thing. It is something that actually really lines up with your intuition. And by the end of this video, I hope I've convinced you of that. Okay, so the thing about the discriminant is that we calculate it. So maybe just to make this clear, I calculate this, and then the discriminant can be really like one of 4 different values, and those values tell us how to interpret the solutions. So for instance, if the discriminant were to equal 0, there's only one rational solution. If the discriminant is a positive perfect square, then there's 2 rational solutions. If it's a positive number but not a perfect square, then there are 2 irrational solutions. And if it's negative, then there are 2 imaginary solutions. So I get it if you're saying like, whoa, this seems like a lot of information that you're putting on me. But I promise you, if you understand the quadratic formula, you actually already know this. And it's literally just kind of summarizing something that you already understand. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the discriminant of the following equations. And then we're also going to find the solutions so that I can show you how the discriminant predicts what type of solutions to have. And I'm going to try to tie it all together for you. So let's start with x squared minus 4x plus 4. Okay, so first of all, just what is our discriminant value? So I've got b squared minus 4ac. So in the a position is a 1, in the b position is a negative 4, and in the c position is a 4. So if I calculate my b squared minus 4ac, this is going to be, let's see, this is going to be negative 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 4. So this comes out to 16 minus 16, so this equals 0. Okay, so let's tie this together now. First of all, the value of when the value of the discriminant equals 0, then there's only one rational solution. So let's make sense of that. Okay, if I were out in the wild, as of course you always do in the wild, you solve quadratics all the time, right? All the time, every single day. So if I were to solve this, if I'm allowed to solve it any way that I want to, the easiest way to solve this actually is with factoring. So this would just factor as x minus 2 times x minus 2 equals 0. And so when I factor this, I can indeed see, right, that there's only one solution. That solution is x equals 2. So the discriminant said if it equals 0, there's only one solution. So it is right. Okay, now I want to just show you why you would have already come to this conclusion on your own. So let me clear some space for a second. And what I want to do is now I actually want to run this through the quadratic formula. So I've got my A, B, and C already lined up. So I'm actually just going to plug everything in so you can just see it. Okay, so you don't have to write like this stuff down if you're in my class and you're taking notes on this. I just want you to watch this for a second. So here I am. If I didn't realize, or if I was told I have to use a quadratic formula. So here I am setting up my quadratic formula, and then as you know, so the first thing I would do, right, is I would work on evaluating this piece under here, and we already know what this piece under here equals, right? It equals 0. So think about what happens then in the quadratic formula. So if you were out in the wild and using the quadratic formula as you do in the wild, so you know now, since this would be a plus or minus square root of 0, that this would now just come out to one solution, right? So like if you have to use this on the quadratic formula and you see this, then you're like, oh, okay, then it's just going to end up becoming 4 over 2 because this dropped out. So that is effectively what this discriminant is saying, is that like if you were doing the full-blown quadratic formula, like you kind of have a sense of what's going to happen with the solutions, the discriminant is just finding a way to like summarize that intuition. Okay, so let's do this again. So why don't you pause here and you calculate the value of the discriminant? And actually, why don't you also, there's a simple way to solve this particular equation. So maybe also just try to solve the equation. So spend a second on your own just proving this to yourself and hit play when you're ready. Okay, so in this case, my A is 1, my B is 6, and my C is 5. So if I calculate my B squared minus 4AC, so that's going to be 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 5. So that's going to be 36 minus 20. And so 36 minus 20 will come out to be just 16. So we'll just cut to the chase on that. Okay, so 16 is a positive perfect square, right? I can take the square root of that. So that means there's two rational solutions. Okay, so let's see if I can easily prove that to myself. So once again, this equation factors, right? And so when something factors, that's when you really have like the easiest solutions, right? So I have x plus 5 times x plus 1. So my solutions are x equals 5 and x equals -1. So those are rational solutions. They're whole numbers. You know, they can be positive or negative, but this is what this guarantees, is that we have something that, you know, I can like easily calculate is another way you could kind of think about that. So this discriminant predicted that accurately. Now, if I want to back up for a second, so remember my b squared minus 4ac was equal to 16. So if I just were to like use the quadratic formula just to show you that again. So let me clear some space and let me just set up like all the work for the quadratic formula. I'll just jump to it. Okay, so if you were doing the quadratic formula, so this would be the setup for it, and then as we just calculated the b squared minus 4ac, so we know that this would become the square root of 16. So just from doing the quadratic formula enough times, like now I know that this will turn into two solutions and they will be two rational solutions, right? So at this point, I would break this up into the +4 and the -4 case, and then I would finish it. So again, like you intuitively know this from just working with the quadratic formula. And so that discriminant is just telling you like what your intuition would line up with if you were working through this via the quadratic formula. Okay, so one more of these. So if this is kind of starting to make sense, I would love it if you just tried this all the way on your own, determine what the solutions are, all that good stuff, hit play when you're ready. Math is not a spectator sport, so just really try to lean into this and make some sense of this, and then hit play whenever you're ready to talk through it. Okay, so my A is 3, my B is 2, and my C is 5. So if I calculate my b squared minus 4ac, this is going to be 2 squared minus 4 times 3 times 5. So let's see, that's going to end up becoming 4 minus 60, right? That's what I'm getting, 4 minus 60. And so that's going to be -56. Okay, so now this is a negative number. And so there are two imaginary solutions. So if we look at this, so this kind of lines up already with our intuition. I can't factor this, so I would probably use the quadratic formula. So I'll just go ahead and set up that quadratic formula. So here's my setup, and I already know that this part here comes out to -56. And so again, like if I'm doing this using the quadratic formula, I can already see that this is going to have imaginary solutions now, right? Because I'm taking the square root of -56. This is the whole thing that the discriminant is really just summarizing of like what you would already know would happen if you were using the quadratic formula. So just to finish this out, I guess, because I said let's find the solution. This will simplify to 2i times the square root of 14 over 6. So you could divide everything by 2 in this case. So let's see, this will become -1 plus or minus I times the square root of 14 over 3. So those would be my two solutions. And so yeah, these are two imaginary solutions, right, at the end of the day. So that's the idea of the discriminant. So hopefully, you know, it's kind of starting to connect. You'll probably have some homework on this. If you found this helpful, consider hitting that like button, leaving a comment, or subscribing to the channel. So I will talk to you guys in another video. Ta-ta for now.